Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If Transmigrated as Minato Namikaze. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 211 Hanabi Hyuga 01. Third person POV. Konoha, year 41. Well, I'd better head back home. I'm a little worried about my uncle and my mother. Besides, I have to deal with the Uzumaki clan representatives who are staying at the Senju clan, and I doubt my mother is handling them properly, so I won't see you tomorrow, Suna said. That was her final remark at the end of her conversation with Minato, as night began to take over the village after an entire day spent at Minato's apartment. All right. How are things with them? I know your mother didn't even attend the event in the Hero Award ceremony alongside Orochimaru, he asked, crossing his arms at his door. Not good. Minato immediately lowered his gaze, pressing his lips together. It was certainly not an easy subject for Kushina. Minato looked at her with a worried expression. He cared for both Nawaki and Tsunade and didn't want to see them in that situation. Suna lowered her head when she saw Minato's gaze. She seemed to press her lips together even more before responding. My mother drinks all the time and spends her days gambling alone. She sighed. She's starting to say that maybe she should leave and spend some time away from the village. I'm afraid she'll lose herself in her vices. Uncle Nawaki still has his responsibilities as the last male heir of the clan, but he won't leave his room. I feel like he sees himself as a failure for not being able to use jutsus with a missing arm. My mother tries to help in her own way, but right now, she's only making things worse. I really don't know what to do, Minato, she murmured, looking back at him, on the verge of breaking into tears. It was a subject that easily made her emotions waver. No matter how happy or laughing she was, just remembering the people she cared about at home after losing her father, Dan, and her uncle losing his arm, sadness would overwhelm her. Give me a few days. I'll try to talk to them, Minato murmured in the end, touching her shoulder. I don't know if I can help much, but I'll do what I can. Suna nodded and smiled slightly at him. Thank you, Minato, she murmured at the end, cupping his face and leaning in. Then, she kissed him before pulling away, running a hand through her hair with a deep blush on her face and avoiding his gaze, still wavering between sadness and embarrassment. It seemed like her emotions had taken the initiative to kiss him. This is for everything. You are the person I love, she said, still shy, but this time, it felt much more natural. The last time she had said that was when she was on the brink of death. Now, she could finally express her feelings without fear. Minato gave a small smile. I love you too, Suna. Take care. The words came out naturally from his mouth. Hey! What was that? A voice exclaimed the moment Kushina stepped into the hallway, pointing at Minato and Suna in indignation. It was an enraged Kushina. It was a kiss. You kissed him this morning too. Suna tried to appear calmer, momentarily forgetting her troubles before smiling at Kushina in a teasing manner. You damn brat. Kushina muttered, clenching her fists in anger, her hair almost rising due to her sudden fury. Minato only sighed. In the end, both girls left together, returning to the Senju clan. Suna even refused Minato's offer to walk her back, claiming that after kissing him, she was feeling a little embarrassed, and they would have the Anbu watching over Kushina the entire way. Minato, on the other hand, returned to his apartment. He saw Makoto stretching before lying down on one side of the bed. He went for a bath and then joined her on the other side, sleeping without any teasing from Makoto like the previous night. The next morning, while having breakfast, Minato brought up an important subject. Makoto, I intend to do something alone today. Is that okay with you? She paused for a moment and watched him carefully, studying his expression before responding. "You're going to talk to her, aren't you?" she asked, her gaze serious. "Yes, I want to see her," Minato said, looking at Makoto. "All right." That was all she said as she resumed drinking her tea. A moment later, Kushina knocked on the door, carrying a picnic basket. As soon as the door opened, she was surprised to see Makoto beside Minato. Minato." She tried to call out to him, but before she could, Makoto firmly grabbed her arm and dragged her outside. "Wait! Where are you taking me?" Kushina protested immediately. "We're going out for a bit, just the two of us." "Minato is busy today," Makoto said as she continued to pull her away. Meanwhile, Minato had already arrived at the Hyuga clan. He landed smoothly at the entrance, where two guards controlled the flow of people coming in and out. "Isn't that?" The guards were surprised by his presence, immediately recognizing the approaching blonde. "Yes." The other guard confirmed as they watched Minato walk up to them before stopping. "I'm here to see Hanabi Hyuga, my teammate," Minato informed them. The two guards exchanged glances for a moment, seeming unsure of what to do. "Apologies, Namikaze-sama, but we are not authorized to handle matters regarding branch family members. We cannot leave our post," one of the guards explained, trying to clarify the situation. He couldn't simply abandon his position to call someone from the branch family to the entrance of the clan. He cannot enter, but go to Fong Hyuga's house and summon his granddaughter, telling her that her teammate is waiting for her. A firm voice spoke up, drawing everyone's attention. It was Hayashi Hyuga, approaching the entrance alongside his brother. "Young Hayashi." The guards were surprised and a bit flustered. Seeing their hesitation, Hayashi insisted. "Go and deliver the message. I will take responsibility for this," he said. One of the guards quickly nodded and vanished to fulfill the order, obeying someone who was a strong candidate for the future patriarch of the clan. Minato was surprised to see him. Having Hayashi Hyuga help him, even though he had punched him nearly 5 years ago for insulting Hanabi in front of him, was unexpected. Still, Minato watched as he passed through the gate and nodded in gratitude, still taken aback by the young man's attitude. Hayashi, however, said nothing more after the acknowledgement and simply continued walking alongside his brother, leaving the clan grounds and heading into the village. Minato waited for a few more minutes until the Hyuga guard returned. The guard looked at Minato, seeming a bit hesitant, but eventually spoke. "Apologies, but Fong has informed us that his granddaughter is indisposed and, therefore, will not be able to see you." Minato narrowed his eyes for a moment but simply nodded and turned away, disappearing from the guard's sight as he walked back toward the village. He avoided the main road and entered an alleyway, crossing his arms and leaning against a wall, deep in thought. His gaze shifted back toward the entrance of the clan. "What's going on with you, Hanabi? Why are you acting like this?" he murmured before sighing. Then, without hesitating any further, he vanished. The scenery around Minato changed in an instant. He was now inside a room, lightly touching the person resting there. Before she could react, he disappeared again with her after grabbing her arm. Now, the bright blue sky stretched around them. They were both falling in freefall over the ocean below. A startled, surprised scream echoed. Minato finally saw Hanabi. She was looking at him, completely shocked, while tears still streamed down her face. She had been crying when he took her. "Minato," she murmured, still dazed, as they fell. In the next moment, Hanabi was the first to hit the water, followed immediately by Minato. They were no longer in the village but in the middle of the ocean, south of the country. Minato opened his eyes, and as he did, he saw Hanabi still staring at him underwater. She remained there, looking at him, and he at her, for a few seconds before acting. Without wasting time, he grabbed her and teleported out of the water, reappearing instantly on the shore. Hanabi immediately started coughing as the water invaded her nose and throat. She struggled to catch her breath, spitting out the salty water as she continued coughing. Cough, cough, cough. She looked at Minato, panting. Minato, what is this? She exclaimed, still trying to compose herself. Sorry about that, Hanabi, but I needed to see you. He spoke with a serious expression. Did you really have to do this? She questioned, wiping away the tears that were still running down her face. Yes, I did. He answered firmly. After all, you didn't want to talk to me. He wasn't sure if it was her grandfather, Fawn, or Hanabi herself who didn't want him to see her, but he bet on the latter. That seemed to unsettle her for a moment. I. She murmured, unable to form a coherent response. Hanabi, I won't accept this. He declared before she could explain, his voice firm. You don't understand, Minato. She murmured, averting her gaze to the ground. You're right, I really don't understand, he retorted. I thought we were teammates. I thought that from the moment we started talking and getting to know each other. Since the moment you saw my secrets in that forest, over 7 or 8 years ago, you would always count on me. He raised his hand, briefly transforming it into light before returning it to normal, a demonstration of the Pika Pika no Mi. Hanabi had seen this power before. She had witnessed it when he was injured, watched as he trained the Raisin Shuriken, saw all the damage inflicted on his body, and then saw him transform into light. She had watched his body regenerate as if it had never been harmed. As a result, they had become friends, then teammates. And now, he didn't know what they were. But he knew she was special. And that he would protect her from whatever he could. Upon seeing this, Hanabi lowered her head, unsure of what to say and feeling ashamed. Her eyes welled up with tears once more, small droplets falling onto the sand beneath her. I'm sorry, was the only thing she could murmur. But I must go back, she said, her voice trembling. No, Minato countered. She lifted her eyes to him, surprised and even looking as if she felt wronged. Please, Minato. Let me go back. I'm sorry for everything, but we can't be teammates anymore, she said, trying to accept the idea that Minato might handle things better without her. No, he repeated, unwavering. She fell silent, her gaze practically begging him to stop insisting. I won't take you back, Hanabi. Not until you tell me exactly what's happening and how I can help you. His voice was serious and determined. Then, he continued. Because I once promised that I would deal with whatever was necessary, that I would face the Hyuga clan itself and its cursed mark if I had to. And you trusted me back then. He took a step forward. I ask you to keep trusting me now. I'm here to help you. He narrowed his eyes as she simply stared at him. Because if you don't help me understand what's happening. His voice grew even colder. I will attack the Hyuga clan myself. Hanabi's eyes widened, shocked by those words. I won't accept this. Whether you want me to or not. She was left speechless upon hearing that. Chapter 212, Hanabi Hyuga 02. Third-person POV. Konoha, Year 41. Because, if you don't help me understand what's going on. His voice grew even colder. I will attack the Hyuga clan myself. Hanabi's eyes widened, shocked by those words. I won't accept this. Whether you like it or not. She was left speechless upon hearing that. Hanabi remained silent while the only sound on that beach was the waves crashing against the shore from time to time, perhaps 1 or 2 seagulls in the sky, completing the scene. Then she broke the silence, seeing Minato staring at her for seconds without saying anything else. Why are you doing this? She murmured, looking into his eyes. I'm here to help you, and I will do whatever is necessary for that. Even if you're against it, he said firmly. But you know you can't cause more trouble, Minato. You're already facing the Uchiha clan because of Makoto, your fiancé. I don't think it's fair for you to just pick a fight with another clan. You'll have huge problems making multiple enemies at the same time, and I don't want that to happen because of me. I'm just someone born into the secondary family, I have no right to ask for anything. She murmured, beginning to lower her head again, her tone pleading, tears forming in her eyes, but without looking at Minato.
Minato listened and nodded.
Certainly, I will bring more trouble upon myself with this.
Hanabi, a lot of trouble.
But even so, I still intend to act this way, whether you want it or not.
I will be the enemy of the Hyuga if that's what it takes to protect you, he declared. But do you really think you can change the future?
My fate, she murmured, looking at Minato again, tears shimmering in her eyes.
She didn't believe in it.
Maybe once, when she first met him, she truly had, but now. And perhaps with that kind of thought, she didn't even see Minato moving against her. Her eyes widened as she suddenly saw him right above her, and in the next moment, he delivered a direct punch just above her head, making her lower her head from the impact. It wasn't strong, but it was enough to leave her dazed before she looked back at him, eyes wide with shock.
How can you talk about fate?
Stop clinging to these concepts where people are destined to become whatever was predetermined for them when they were children, he exclaimed, his voice filled with frustration.
Minato no longer seemed like the calm person she once knew. This really irritates me. You've had these ideas before, and I believed that one day you would let them go. But it seems I was mistaken. You still think people are destined to act according to their birth. That's ridiculous, Hanabi, even for you to think that, he said. We are all different, but we make most of the decisions about how we will act in our lives. We shape them.
I know a lot of things in this world are unfair, but we still have control over our lives, and we can act or even ask for help.
He said, looking at her.
I know the Hyuga clan is very strict, and even you, and I admit it, all the Hyugas with the mark have suffered retaliation from the main clan, unable to change that. And I am sorry for that.
I can't do anything for them. But you, Hanabi.
You are my companion, and you are far too important for me to simply stand by and watch you be consumed by your fears, he murmured.
Then tell me, Minato.
Hanabi exploded, pressing her hands into the sand upon contact with the beach. She raised a hand and reached for her headband, removing it. The mark of the Hyuga clan became visible to Minato.
Tell me, then, how will you remove something like this from my forehead?
I am doomed to carry this for the rest of my life. I once had hoped that you could truly fulfill your words many years ago, and I was happy to stay by your side, alongside Makoto as our sensei.
I became stronger thanks to you, more than anything. But now my clan no longer wants me to act this way.
They want me to abandon the strength I built and the bonds I had, to dedicate myself entirely to training as a bodyguard for the main family. The more she spoke, the more tears streamed from her eyes as she raised her voice at Minato, a mixture of fear, despair, and anger. Anger at Minato, because every time he spoke, her heart felt more willing to believe him, to believe in this madness that wouldn't be good for either of them.
And you're just going to give up like that?
Minato spoke again, his tone firm.
As if I could do anything?
Haven't you understood that? She shouted at him.
I'm telling you that you can trust me, you fool. Do you think I can't try to help you?
I've already said that I will fight to help you, whether you want it or not.
But this isn't the Hanabi I know. You're just lowering your head. After all these damn years surviving war, fighting on the battlefield, now you suddenly let your clan's orders make you act like this? I wanted you to want this too because it feels like I'm dealing with just another puppet of the Hyuga clan and its elders.
Not my teammate, the one I've been with since our academy days, he said. She listened, her eyes widening even more before they filled with fresh tears once again. But she no longer shouted back at him. Instead, she lowered her head and began to sob, trembling as she looked down.
Minato remained silent, watching the girl cry.
She no longer seemed to have the strength or the courage to look at him again.
I'm going for a walk.
Don't move from here, he said, turning away as he left, frustration evident in his steps. Hanabi had no other reaction but to continue crying, her eyes fixed on the sand beneath her, unsure of what else to do.
Minato kept walking along the beach in silence, moving farther and farther away from Hanabi.
He was frustrated, deep in thought, and a little angry about the situation.
She had simply given up on everything. It shouldn't be like this. She should be with them.
She should be asking for his help.
But that wasn't the case.
He kept walking until he was at a considerable distance from Hanabi, then stood still for hours, staring at the sea, trapped within his own thoughts. He gazed at the waves, trying to distract himself from thinking about her for a moment. His eyes fixed on the rolling ocean, and he began to reflect on his old friend, Durin, the blue talking fish.
He must be swimming somewhere, he thought.
Without dwelling on it further, Minato suddenly decided to leave the shore, leaping over the water and swiftly gliding across the ocean's surface, using his ability to move over the air. As he ventured farther into the open sea, he attempted to locate Durin using his observation haki or sensing his chakra as a sensor, scanning the vast waters along the coastline. However, he found no sign of Durin.
"What are you doing, Durin?"
he murmured to himself, receiving no answer, his gaze scanning the seemingly endless expanse of water. Finding no trace of his friend and realizing he had drifted over 4 kilometers away from the shore, he noticed that the entire day had passed. The sun had begun to set on the horizon, painting the sky with shades of orange.
Minato decided then to return.
After all, they couldn't stay away from the village for too long. Upon returning to the beach, Minato saw Hanabi in the same spot. She remained seated, hugging her knees, her head lowered. He sighed at the sight of her like that and approached, landing calmly in front of her, completely silent.
"It's time to go back.
I'll take you home," he said in a slightly dry tone.
Hanabi broke her silence. "You know,"
she began, murmuring, her throat dry, something the blonde immediately noticed. Minato stopped approaching when he heard her, watching her without saying anything, while she still kept her head resting on her knees. "There were only 2 times in my life when I felt free from my clan's rules.
Just 2 times in my entire life."
She paused before continuing, her voice heavy with emotion.
"The first was when we met.
When you said those words to me,
I truly believed them.
I thought I could finally change my life, instead of simply obeying and being a puppet of my clan." She murmured before pausing again, taking a deep breath. Then, finally, she lifted her gaze. Her eyes were swollen from hours of crying. Her stare found the setting sun, lost in thought. "The second time was when you suggested that I change my fighting style. That I refine my wind element and use a bow and arrow. I knew the consequences of that, but still, you gave me hope that I could carve out a different path.
And I accepted it. I don't regret it." Hanabi finally turned her eyes back to him. "But tell me, Minato."
She looked at him with determination.
"What will happen to me if I rebel against the clan? If I still want to be your companion and continue practicing my long-range fighting style? I am alone in that clan. My grandfather follows the rules to the letter, surely you know that."
She stared at him, waiting for an answer.
"Yes, it would be dangerous," Minato admitted. "But still."
His expression grew serious again.
"I want to take you away from there. I want you to come live with me." His words made Hanabi's eyes widen in surprise. "What do you mean by that?"
she murmured hesitantly.
"I will take you as mine. I want you to be my woman. And I doubt any bastard would dare to harm you if you carried the Namikaze name," he declared firmly. Hanabi was left speechless.
It wasn't a secret between them that she had feelings for Minato. "But, what about the other girls?" she murmured, uncertain. "Everyone knows what would happen to you one way or another. So, it's better to take you out of there. If you're willing to accept me along with the other 3 girls," he said.
"I also want to live with you for the rest of my life." With emotions in turmoil, Hanabi lowered her head again as more tears began to flow. She stayed like that for a few minutes, silently crying.
Minato remained there the entire time, just watching her.
Until, finally, Hanabi lifted her eyes to him. "Please, Minato, then help me. I want to be with you. I love you,"
she finally said, able to express what had truly been in her heart all along. Chapter 213, The Uchiha Clan Challenge 01.
Third-person POV. Konoha, Year 41.
Minato took Hanabi to his house, silently placed her in the room, and left, making it clear that if she ever had trouble with the clan, she should use the mark of her seal. He would appear and help her, no matter the occasion. Even if surrounded by the elders, he would act against all of them. Hanabi was now lying in her bed, deep in thought after resting her head on the pillow. After finally opening up to him, she had a long conversation with Minato over the past few hours.
I shouldn't have distanced myself so much. I should never have given up so easily.
That was all she said, with a feeling of regret and emotional armor, as her gaze fell to the side, a small smile forming after things had led to this outcome.
Hanabi, dinner is ready.
At that moment, her grandfather approached the room, calling for her. Hanabi got up and changed her clothes, which were still slightly dirty from the sea breeze, having accumulated some salt.
Then, she headed to dinner.
She sat calmly in front of her relative while he was already serving himself.
You seem more cheerful. Did something happen? Her grandfather noticed the change in his granddaughter's expression. Do I? I didn't even notice, I just thought things through a little more.
In the end, that was all she said, ending the topic, even though her grandfather still looked at her with some suspicion.
Meanwhile, Minato returned to his apartment and found Makoto and Kushina eating at the table. Minato! You're back, that's good. Join us.
Minato approached and sat at the table as well, grabbing some of the noodles they had prepared.
Did you talk to her? Makoto asked, looking at him since he had been out all day. Yes.
Minato replied, but Kushina, more impatient, interrupted him before he could finish speaking.
And?
She exclaimed, eager to know what had happened. It's all settled now, she has made her decision.
Minato commented, pausing briefly before adding.
I will take her as my wife as well.
I hope you both understand that. He warned. What? Kushina immediately exclaimed. Why the surprise? Didn't you already expect this? Makoto raised an eyebrow at the redhead. I know, but it's so sudden, Databane. Kushina exclaimed. It's the only way to get her out of the clan. Minato stated. Hey! What's going on here?
At that moment, the window opened, and Tsuna Senju appeared inside.
I'm going to challenge the Hyuga clan as well. Minato declared, making it clear to them. Isn't that a bit dangerous, Minato? You're already facing the Uchiha clan.
I know you've planned on doing this, and it's your way of handling things, but I'm a little concerned. Tsuna murmured, aware of the political impact this could cause and the pressure on Minato's shoulders.
Yes, I'm well aware of that. Minato spoke.
Compared to what he envisioned doing in the future, this was nothing compared to facing two entire clans alone within the village.
If you know what you're doing, then okay. Tsuna replied in the end, while Makoto and Kushina remained silent, creating a somewhat tense atmosphere. Minato. Makoto suddenly murmured, and Minato looked at her attentively. Some members of the Uchiha clan approached me today,
she said as he narrowed his eyes.
What did they say? Minato asked in a serious tone.
They said they are waiting for your challenge.
Makoto spoke with some caution. They didn't just say that. Kushina exclaimed indignantly. You have to tell him everything, Makoto.
She continued, clenching her fists in anger. They mocked you and her, Minato.
Listen carefully. They said Makoto should die in an accident just for abandoning the clan. Kushina spoke with fury, casting a heavy atmosphere in the air.
Minato looked at Makoto upon hearing this, his narrowed eyes gleaming with silent danger.
Yes, they said that.
Aside from stating that I'm officially expelled from the clan, which is not exactly news.
Makoto murmured, observing him carefully. I see. Let's settle this once and for all. Minato stated. Tomorrow, Kushina will stay with you, Tsuna. He spoke as the blonde joined them after closing the window. After all, your clan is in the village.
I think you should stay with Tsuna too, she's alone due to her family's condition. He paused and then continued, looking at Makoto.
Makoto, we're going to the Uchiha battlefield tomorrow. It's time to put an end to this once and for all. I want to see if Fugaku still has anything to say after challenging me. Minato knew that many Uchiha had been watching his fight against Might Due.
That should have instilled some fear in them, but it seemed they were still quite agitated, and he would have to face them head-on, finally.
So be it.
Minato decided internally, determined to put an end to this matter once and for all. The atmosphere was no longer as cheerful as before after this discussion, and the four of them ate in silence.
After finishing their meal, Kushina left with Tsuna, while Makoto and Minato went to sleep. So, tomorrow, we're putting an end to this, aren't we? Makoto murmured, looking out the window where the darkness had taken over the night.
Yes, we'll finish this once and for all.
I guarantee you won't have to worry about your clan anymore. Minato responded with conviction from his side of the bed. Makoto turned toward him and embraced him from behind. Thank you,
she whispered near his ear. And so, they both fell asleep.
The next morning, they left Minato's apartment, dressed appropriately, as if going to war. Minato had decided he would end this conflict that day. Even though not even a week had passed since his return from the war, he would challenge the entire Uchiha clan if necessary. He wanted to resolve this quickly because he still needed to deal with the Hyuga. Thus, the couple advanced through the village, walking toward the center. Minato! Someone called him at that moment.
Turning around, he saw Madame Guerite returning from some shopping, holding a child's hand.
Madame Guerite, he murmured. Good to see you around. You still haven't stopped by the orphanage,
she said in a slightly reproachful tone, though it didn't sound like a direct scolding.
Minato understood. Sorry, I've been a bit busy these past few days.
I'll go as soon as I take care of a few more things.
All right. She nodded. Then, good luck, boy. Whatever it is you're getting yourself into now.
She had realized this was no ordinary stroll.
After saying their goodbyes, Minato and Makoto continued moving forward.
It didn't take long for them to reach the area of the great clans at the center of the village. Ignoring the others, they headed straight for the clan that bore the fan with fire as its symbol. Minato had always wondered if it was Madara himself who had formalized this design due to his weapon when he was the clan leader. But as far as he knew, it could have existed even before Madara was born. He wasn't sure. Putting those thoughts aside, he pressed forward. The guards at the Uchiha clan's gate watched their approach, clearly recognizing them and staring intently. Minato saw the guards narrow their eyes attentively, already aware of who they were, but he didn't waste time. As soon as he was close enough, he announced the reason for his presence.
My name is Minato Namikaze, and I wish to challenge Fugaku Uchiha to a duel.
His declaration initially surprised the guards, who exchanged glances for a moment.
They didn't show any reaction beyond a brief, silent assessment.
Then, one of them disappeared.
Wait here.
I hope you know what you're doing, Minato Namikaze.
We are not the weak ninjas you faced in the war,
the remaining guard commented in a severe tone.
However, Minato and Makoto were not offended.
They remained silent, waiting for the clan's response.
It didn't take more than 2 minutes for the other guard to return.
The clan leader has authorized your fight against Fugaku.
Follow me to the clan's training area. I hope you don't mind the audience.
After all, you've angered a lot of people, so don't get nervous if many Sharingans turn against you.
Understood?
The guard spoke with a tone of anger toward Minato.
Stop being arrogant. Let's get this over with. Minato shrugged off the provocation.
The man gritted his teeth upon hearing this but said nothing more. He hated being disregarded or underestimated, especially by someone who didn't come from any special clan in the village, just someone who had stood out in the war and possessed talent beyond others. The fact that such a man believed he could treat the Uchihas like insects only made him angrier.
And who's being arrogant here? He retorted but soon started walking into the clan's territory. Minato and Makoto followed the ninja further into the Uchiha grounds. Minato looked around, observing the clan with curiosity as they advanced through the corridor between the houses.
Clan members were going about their daily activities, women tending to household chores, while children played amidst Uchiha-style training. Some men, ninjas, appeared on rooftops, watching the newcomers. The stares were mostly directed at Minato.
He was certainly not welcome there.
As they moved forward, more Uchihas turned their attention toward them. Some were merely curious, but most wore cold and hostile expressions. Leaving the main streets of the clan behind, they entered a vast open space where several ninjas were training within the clan's private grounds. It wasn't as large as the village's training fields, but it was certainly enough for the clan to train its young ninjas before they joined the academy. At the center of the training grounds, a crowd was already waiting for them, with many ninjas watching from the trees surrounding them.
It was no surprise when dozens of Sharingans activated all around them, viewing Minato and Makoto as a threat. Makoto seemed slightly tense but maintained her firm stance.
Minato, on the other hand, remained calm.
Soon, the crowd parted, revealing a group of elders, and among them, Mizu Uchiha Makoto's father stepped forward, representing the clan.
Behind the elders stood Fugaku Uchiha, who had been called urgently to be there. He had quickly accepted Minato's challenge, knowing that this was the reason he had come.
"So, you finally arrived.
I didn't think you'd come here so quickly."
Mizu's voice was firm.
His eyes turned directly to Minato, activating his three-tomo Sharingan.
"Do you still stand by your words that you would fight our entire clan if necessary?" he asked in a severe tone. Minato, however, showed no hesitation.
"Of course. I'm here to face Fugaku and put an end to this once and for all. But if you all want to fight together, let's get started without any more delay." Minato spoke, his cold eyes scanning the Uchihas around him.
"Makoto will be my wife, whether you like it or not.
And I'm here to make sure no one bothers her or me ever again.
She will carry my surname, as will my children."
Minato spoke with a certain arrogance, while Makoto agreed with his words and opened her red eyes as well.
Chapter 214, The Uchiha Clan Challenge 02. Third-person POV. Konoha, Year 41.
The atmosphere instantly grew tense as all those Sharingans, most of them belonging to older ninjas, including both the elders and the most powerful members of the clan, glared at them with anger. Minato felt Makoto's hand on his at that moment. She squeezed it tightly, a silent signal that they were in this together, no matter how many ninjas stood against them.
"Arrogant boy. And you, girl, you were once a talented Uchiha.
You should be with us, not standing beside someone without a clan, an outsider," one of the elders growled, clearly disapproving of the situation.
"Remember that this same boy, whom you call clanless."
Makoto spoke, forcing the elder to meet her gaze as both of her activated Sharingan eyes bore into him. Made a name for himself in the war and became one of Konoha's most powerful ninjas at such a young age. I bet that at his age, you hadn't accomplished anything relevant, and your strength doesn't even come close to his. She spoke with an arrogant tone. Even without belonging to a noble clan, Minato had earned respect and admiration for his achievements.
Makoto took a step forward, facing the Uchihas around her and declaring firmly, after all, was there any Uchiha who stood out in the war as much as he did? "How dare you, you!" One of the Uchiha Jonins immediately shouted, but he couldn't even finish his sentence, ready to curse Makoto.
Suddenly, an intense light flashed between them. The Uchiha barely had time to react before feeling a powerful kick strike his face, sending him flying. The other ninjas around him instinctively stepped back, their eyes widening in shock as the Uchiha hit the ground, unconscious. "Insult her in front of me again, and I'll start beating every single one of you." Minato landed on the ground, his sharp gaze scanning the crowd. The Uchihas roared in fury, feeling humiliated by his actions. "Don't let him get so full of himself," one of the ninjas shouted, losing his patience. Minato had already attacked, and now there was no avoiding the fight between him and Fugaku. Attack! In an instant, several Jonins lunged at Minato from all directions, not thinking twice. Minato, seeing this, only smiled. He made a subtle hand signal, and Makoto immediately understood what he was about to do. She quickly prepared herself, waiting for him to begin the seals. The ninjas came from every direction, surrounding Minato, but he didn't even look into their eyes. He knew that facing so many Sharingans head-on could trap him in a genjutsu. Instead, he began weaving numerous hand seals at a speed so fast that no one could even see them. Then, without hesitation, he completed his jutsu. In the next instant, his body shone like a fluorescent lamp. Light release, flash explosion. Minato finished his jutsu. The flash was so intense that, in the very next moment, countless screams echoed across the battlefield. The Uchihas recoiled, hit directly by the blinding light. Their Sharingans, highly sensitive, amplified the impact of the brightness, leaving them momentarily blinded. Minato glanced around at the countless people turning their faces away, even seeing their once red eyes dilated into a pale white from the overwhelming exposure to his jutsu. My eyes. I can't see. Quickly, get back. Taking advantage of the confusion, Minato didn't waste a second. Turning into a streak of light, he dashed forward, striking the ninjas one by one, moving across the battlefield at absurd speeds as he kicked and punched them. One after another, the Uchihas fell to the ground, unable to comprehend where the attacks were coming from. Makoto slowly opened her eyes. She had closed them at the right moment, following Minato's instructions, knowing exactly what he would do. Before her, the battlefield was filled with Uchihas lying on the ground, still struggling to regain their sight. The chaos had escalated quickly, and Minato wasn't about to give them a chance to recover. He had already made his decision. If they refused to talk and only wanted to insult them, then he would deal with it in the most direct way possible. This was a jutsu Minato had used before at the Earth Village's encampment, when they launched an attack alongside the Sand Village on both sides of the western border. He had launched his counterattack alone, beginning with this very jutsu to catch the enemy off guard. And for the second time, it had proven to be highly effective. On that occasion, Minato had arrived at the entire enemy camp and taken them down one by one. Now, against the Sharingan, it was even more effective. Like any other dojutsu, light was the fastest thing in existence. The Sharingan could predict physical movements and anticipate them, but it could not see the future. The light jutsu had put them at a huge disadvantage since the entire clan had been affected by looking directly at Minato in that moment, trying to anticipate his movements. Makoto watched as he moved swiftly, continuing to kick and punch all the Uchihas in the area. In the next instant, Minato stopped. All of his opponents collapsed to the ground, dazed. He had just defeated 40 Uchiha clan ninjas. But they weren't just ordinary ninjas. The clan may have had a much larger number of members, but the most powerful ones, including the elders and the leader, had been defeated in this way. Makoto remained stunned. Even the ninjas watching from a distance were shocked by what they had just witnessed. Then, Minato created a multitude of clones, who began gathering the fallen bodies, piling them together before tying them up. The rest of the clan, watching the scene unfold, fell into a panic and quickly began approaching. At that moment, Mizu Uchiha, Makoto's father, managed to regain consciousness alongside the elders. They all awakened, still disoriented, and found themselves surrounded by a crowd of Uchihas who had arrived, encircling Minato along with the hostages. They were tied up, looking at Minato and Makoto in shock, both standing in front of them. Well, you've finally woken up, Minato spoke calmly, observing the confusion on their faces. Everything happened so fast that no one even really knows what just happened, do they? He gave a slight smile and paused before continuing. Seems like my fight against Fugaku never happened. Instead, I had to fight all of you. Well, and as you can see, you all lost. Kind of disappointing, don't you think? Minato mocked, looking at the 40 ninjas who were now awake, still struggling to grasp the situation. You. One of the Uchihas tried to speak, but Minato interrupted him. I would be careful with what you say. He smiled coldly. After all, every single one of your bodies is covered in explosive tags that I placed. At any moment, I could simply decide to detonate them all on my command. Kaboom! The entire elite of the Uchiha clan would vanish. Silence took over the area at such a threat.
No one could believe what they were hearing.
When that boy had walked in, no one had imagined the situation would end like this.
The ninjas surrounding the scene were in shock.
They had just watched their clan's leaders, their guards, and even their greatest prodigies fall one by one in an instant, after that blinding flash that might have caught the entire village's attention. Quickly, they called upon the entire clan, and now more than 400 Uchiha ninjas surrounded the area. However, Minato remained calm, arms crossed, while keeping all those he had defeated as hostages.
Even Makoto couldn't believe it.
She had seen many incredible abilities from Minato before, but witnessing this was shocking, even for her.
"What do you want?" One of the elders finally broke the silence. "Now you want to talk?" Minato raised an eyebrow. "Well, but isn't it a little too late for that?"
He looked directly at the elder, who seemed frustrated.
Many of the ninjas there didn't even have the courage to look him in the eye, feeling immense shame.
But in the end, he continued. "I came here to establish a fact," he declared, his voice echoing through the silence of the clan.
"Makoto will be part of my Namikaze clan. She will be my wife. And I expect you all to respect that."
"You think we can just let our genetics be spread around like that?" One of the elders spoke, activating his Sharingan again and glaring at Minato. He attempted to trap him in a genjutsu, but Minato quickly released a pulse of chakra before he could be affected, anticipating it with his observation haki.
"Well, I think you really shouldn't have done that," Minato said calmly.
In the next instant, he pointed his finger. It glowed, and in the blink of an eye, a beam of light shot through the elder's head. The elder fell to the ground, dead, as the beam of light left a small hole in the earth where it had struck, but it did not explode.
Silence took over the area. Everyone's eyes widened in shock. "It seems you didn't understand."
Minato spoke, his voice laced with coldness.
"I know very well that your intention was to kill Makoto and me. That's why I won't hesitate to kill every single one of you here and now.
After all, if we don't resolve this now, I will simply destroy you." The impact of Minato's words reverberated through the clan.
Everyone was stunned. Who could have imagined that this boy would actually kill an elder in the middle of the Uchiha clan?
The body lay there, lifeless, like an animal slaughtered before them.
You killed him."
One of the Uchihas murmured, still unable to believe what had just happened.
"Yes, I'm serious," Minato confirmed, his gaze cold and unwavering.
"I knew you wouldn't stop, so I decided to put an end to this. If necessary, I will do the same to anyone else who tries to attack us." Even with hundreds of Uchihas surrounding him, no one dared to move. And those who could actually retaliate were bound, helpless, unable to act.
Minato then approached his father-in-law, Mizu Uchiha, and crouched before him. "Well, I'm giving you this choice."
He spoke calmly, but his expression was serious.
"If your elders want to kill Makoto, I won't hesitate to protect her. Even if it means killing all of you. Do you understand that?"
Mizu Uchiha remained silent for a moment before finally responding, his voice filled with frustration.
"Yes."
At that instant, he seemed to have lost all his pride. His voice carried the weight of defeat and humiliation.
How had a single boy defeated all of them in an instant? How had the Uchiha clan fallen to such a point?
Minato had just committed murder inside the village, but not only that, he had single-handedly dominated the entire elite of the Uchiha clan in just a few seconds, catching them all off guard. The Uchiha clan could be proud, but they were not fools. They knew they had to respect such power.
"I want your word," Minato continued. "Makoto will not face any retaliation."
"Tell me now, or I will weaken the Uchiha clan to such an extent that it will take decades for you to recover your strength."
"Is that what you want?"
The elders remained silent. Their pride made it difficult to submit, but fear and self-preservation were stronger.
They finally understood that they were facing a monster. "Do I have your word?" Minato asked again. Silence remained.
He sighed, already preparing to act again when he finally heard the response.
"All right. You have our word. Mizu Uchiha spoke, defeated. We will not seek retaliation against my daughter.
In the end, the clan patriarch had no other choice.
What else could they do?
They were completely at the mercy of the boy.
Minato smiled slightly and then looked at Makoto. Did you hear that, Makoto? It looks like everything has been settled.
He then turned to Fugaku, who had been watching everything with a gaze filled with conflicting emotions.
I suppose I don't even need to fight you anymore, do I, Fugaku? Fugaku remained silent.
There was no pride left in his eyes, only the bitter acceptance of reality. Minato then paused, staring at all the Uchihas present. I have no intention of getting involved in clan matters any further, he declared. However, his voice grew more serious as he added. But if there is any attack against Makoto or anyone I care about, and there is an Uchiha involved or even remotely connected to it,
I will know it was you. The warning was clear.
No one responded, but everyone understood the message.
Minato then flashed a small smile and looked at Makoto. Well, I think we're done here. Let's go.
The girl, still stunned by everything that had happened, only nodded.
She couldn't believe it had all ended in an instant.
Minato had actually killed an elder without hesitation, and this moment would forever mark the history of the Uchiha clan.
Chapter 215, Nawaki's Condition. Third-person POV. Konoha, Year 41. Minato, did you really kill an elder of the clan? Makoto murmured beside Minato as they walked back toward the clan's entrance.
Yes.
Minato spoke in a dry tone. They were heading out of Uchiha territory. Makoto couldn't help but glance back, noticing the clan members staring at them as they left alone.
Some ninjas merely watched from a distance, monitoring to confirm they were truly leaving.
Maybe. But it doesn't matter now, Minato said to himself. He was certain the Uchiha clan would not escalate the incident to the Hokage.
They were too proud, and in the end, everything had started from a misunderstanding they had caused themselves.
And so, they left the clan. Makoto just sighed and looked at Minato, taking his hand and squeezing it.
Thank you for everything, she said to the man she loved.
Minato nodded in silence. Where are we going now? Makoto asked, as there were no plans after the sudden outcome of that situation.
We're going to the Senju clan, Minato replied, and, taking advantage of Makoto's touch, he teleported them with his jutsu. Both disappeared in the blink of an eye and reappeared near the Senju clan's entrance. They began to pass through the gate and had no trouble entering the place.
It didn't take long for Tsuna to appear, sensing their chakra as they approached.
You're here. I thought you were going to handle things with the Uchiha clan, she murmured.
We just got back from there, Makoto said. Tsuna raised an eyebrow at that, while Makoto gave a small smile. Let's just say Minato was quick to make it clear to my clan that we're getting married, the Uchiha said, seemingly provoking Tsuna.
The blonde snorted.
Well, that's good either way, Tsuna replied in the end.
Come inside, she said finally, and the two followed her into the house.
At that moment, Kushina appeared, holding a cake in her hands. Everyone's here. Come on, come eat.
I just made it, she said cheerfully. As they passed by the side of the house, Minato looked to the side and saw Nawaki, Tsunade's brother, standing in the yard. His shirt fluttered slightly on the right side, where he had lost his arm. He was trying to form hand seals using only his left hand, but without success in completing them.
With each failed attempt, his expression became more irritated.
Nawaki noticed their gaze and paused for a moment. The boy realized he was being watched, then quickly averted his eyes, embarrassed. He seemed unwilling to show his failure before them. Frustrated and ashamed, he turned around and began to walk away without saying anything. He's trying to perform jutsus again, Tsuna murmured upon noticing Minato's gaze toward her uncle. It must be very hard for a ninja to no longer be able to perform jutsus, Makoto, beside him, also noticed and commented. None of the other two girls responded immediately.
The atmosphere grew a little heavy. Due wasn't specialized in ninjutsu, was he? Yet, he's an excellent ninja.
You saw how we fought together, Minato finally said. No one disagreed as he seemed to ponder it.
Maybe he can learn to adapt in another way.
He knew there was another possibility, the creation of a prosthetic arm for Nawaki using Mokuton, especially since he was a member of the Senju clan. However, Minato had no idea how to build something like that. Maybe someone with advanced medical knowledge could help using his grandfather's cells. They moved forward, seeing Tsunade along with two other members of the Uzumaki clan. One was a man in his 40s, who had been with Minato at the Hokage's building, and another beside him, also middle-aged.
They were talking to Tsunade.
The two men seemed to frown while the woman looked bored listening to them, drinking in front of her.
Suna lowered her head in embarrassment at seeing her mother in that state.
When they noticed the newcomer's presence, they were immediately acknowledged. Tsunade narrowed her eyes upon seeing them.
"Ah, you're here. And you too, damn brat," she said, referring to Minato.
"It's no wonder he's a student of that pervert," she murmured softly, recalling Jiraiya's reputation. To her, Minato had become quite the womanizer, and now, her daughter was in his hands.
"I see. This is the Yellow Flash. He managed to defeat and even severely injure the Raikage, so young." "Very talented," one of the Uzumakis murmured, scratching his beard as he analyzed them.
He approached Minato to greet him.
"Hello, Minato Namikaze," he said. "I'm Mu Uzumaki, and this is Renjiro Uzumaki.
We were receiving some praise from the Hokage at the village building a few days ago, if you remember," he added. "Yes, he mentioned that you helped a lot during the war and were instrumental in repelling Kiri's attacks," Minato replied. "Not much different from you, who fought on two fronts. I'm still impressed that the village has someone so talented and so young." "Perhaps a future Hokage," the man murmured, still studying him. For him and his clan, it was crucial to keep an eye on the village's political future. After all, he wanted the alliance and friendship between Konoha and the Land of Whirlpools to continue.
Minato simply gave a friendly smile, neither confirming nor denying.
"Anyway, can we see the scrolls, Tsunade?" he said, turning to the woman beside him, who, after taking another sip of her drink, replied.
"Certainly," she murmured.
She gave Minato one last look, placing two fingers between her eyes and then pointing at him, as if warning him that she was watching him the whole time. Shortly after, she left together with the Uzumakis toward the clan's storage. It seemed they were dealing with something important. Minato stayed to eat some of Kushina's cake along with the others, but soon said he needed to take care of something else.
He got up and teleported away. He didn't leave the Senju clan.
He just went to another part of it, finding Nawaki training by a small lake within the clan. The sound of bamboo striking as it filled with water echoed from time to time through the place.
As soon as Minato appeared, Nawaki quickly looked at him and grabbed a kunai.
"Who?" he exclaimed, stopping as soon as he saw who it was. "Minato," he murmured, a little surprised by his presence. He felt a bit embarrassed. After all, he had been saved by this guy when he was about to die but hadn't even spoken to him, making him feel a little guilty about it.
"Hey, how's everything going?" Minato asked, approaching alone.
"What can I say?" the young Senju ninja murmured in a slightly somber tone.
"I'm just a cripple now," he said in the end.
"Maybe you are now." Minato didn't offer comforting words, making Nawaki raise an eyebrow. "But what matters is that you're alive. You survived after everything," he said.
"But at what cost, Minato Namikaze? I was supposed to lead the clan now. Look at me."
"My ninja career is over," he said bitterly.
"Maybe it doesn't have to be that way," Minato countered. "You know there are many other ways to fight besides forming jutsus."
"Speak for yourself," the boy murmured, annoyed. Minato realized he was already tired of that conversation. "Well then, it's a good thing I'm here." Minato gave a smile and touched his shoulder as he got close enough to Nawaki.
Before Nawaki could react, they vanished from there.
When they reappeared, they were in another part of the village.
"What are you doing?"
Nawaki murmured, dissatisfied, looking around and seeing that they were in a rather destroyed field. There were signs of repairs, but it was still possible to notice the damage. The ground was uneven, and the vegetation had been damaged. They've fixed the ground a bit, but there's still a lot to repair.
You can see it from the vegetation. Don't you see how it's destroyed? Minato said, without directly answering Nawaki's question. What is this? I don't understand. Still dissatisfied, Nawaki murmured. This was a fight that happened.
Maybe you haven't heard about it, but the whole village knew.
It was a fight without jutsus.
Only taijutsu, he explained, making Nawaki raise an eyebrow for the first time, curious.
Tell me, Nawaki. Wouldn't you like to fight like that? Not everyone needs to use jutsus, Minato asked, watching the young senju's silence.
Nawaki listened, then shrugged. I doubt I could fight that way, he said, discouraged.
Well, it doesn't hurt to try, does it? Or do you just want to sit around feeling sorry for yourself? We could try practicing together. Maybe your lineage can be useful in other ways. Your sister and your niece are extremely strong. By distributing chakra through their bodies, they can shatter stones and giant rocks with a single punch. I've always thought you focused only on jutsus, but maybe you can adapt to other ways of fighting, Minato said seriously. He couldn't bear to see a friend and comrade in such a state. He could even visualize a future where Nawaki committed suicide, consumed by shame and the inability to continue as a ninja after losing his arm. After all, Minato had heard some things around the village. People were saying that the great Senju clan had fallen to the point of having a crippled heir. He also remembered the case of Tsukumo Hatake in the original timeline, who took his own life because he couldn't bear the pressure and public judgment. Why would Nawaki be any different? Minato had thought about this even more when he saw his friend's state earlier, noticing him with his head down while the girls talked. The pain and frustration were written all over his face. So, what do you suggest, kid? In the end, Nawaki asked, trying to maintain a tough tone, but letting a hint of curiosity and hope slip through. Hold on, Minato said before touching Nawaki's shoulder once again and disappearing with the older boy. They reappeared somewhere else, near the training grounds, and Minato started walking through the streets of Konoha. Nawaki had no choice but to follow him as they moved through the village streets. Minato didn't have a Horatian seal near where he planned to go, so they went on foot until they reached a rather large house. It was where Due now lived with his wife and son. With the salary and rewards he had received from the village, especially for having developed a new technique that would be added to the 1000 Jutsus scroll, he had managed to improve his family's living conditions. Upon entering the yard, they saw little guy training, carrying a huge rock on his back. Hey! Isn't that a bit much? Nawaki murmured, surprised. Minato shrugged and approached. Guy, where's your father? Minato asked. That broke the boy's concentration. When he looked at Minato, he missed his step and fell to the ground with the rock. Ow, 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 he groaned softly, but quickly got up and put on a determined smile. Mr. Minato, how are you? He exclaimed excitedly. I'm fine. I wanted to see your father, Minato replied. That's amazing. Dad hasn't recovered yet, but... You look so well, Mr. Minato. You're really incredible, the boy said enthusiastically, quickly leading them inside the house. There, they were greeted by Dewey's wife, who welcomed them kindly. They followed her to the room where Dewey was resting. The man was still suffering from the side effects of having used the sixth gate during a battle. He was lying on the bed, with some bandages around his body, as he had fractured bones during the intense fight. Besides that, Minato's armament haki had caused severe internal damage to their opponent, forcing Dewey to push past his limits to win. Minato, Dewey murmured, trying to sit up, but failing. I see that the power of youth still burns brightly in you, he said, trying to keep his good humor despite his weakened state. You'll be fine. I came here to talk to you about something, Minato said, pulling up a chair and sitting beside the bed. And what would that be, Minato? Dewey asked, curious. You see this one beside me? This is Nawaki Senju. I would like you to accept him as your apprentice. And teach him the 8 gates, Minato said directly, ending his sentence with firmness. Chapter 216 Cursed Seal of the Caged Bird of the Hyuga Clan. Third Person POV. Konoha, Year 41.
Minato left the two talking as he made his way out of the Might family home, having nothing more to see there. He only hoped that Nawaki could master taijutsu at a level similar to Due, given that he had a lineage with great potential. Minato then walked through the village, deciding to go to the orphanage. He quickly arrived at the place, entering through the gate while the children playing in the yard quickly noticed him, looking at him with curiosity.
"That's..." a girl murmured. "Minato Namikaze. The hero."
Another exclaimed, eyes shining as he remembered Minato well from when he was honored, and they started pushing him around in the middle of the festival.
Minato smiled at the children.
"Is Madame Guerite in?" he asked. In the end, Minato entered the orphanage after dodging all the children and ended up having a coffee with Madame Guerite. "So, you're full of problems from what I'm seeing," the woman said, looking at Minato.
You know?"
Minato was caught off guard as they had been talking about random things. "I know you well enough to tell, boy," she said, smiling. "Well, I can't say I'm completely free of problems," Minato finally admitted. "I figured as much, but I'm sure you'll get through it. After all, I know you always stand up for your friends. No matter how hard it gets, you never abandon them, right?" she said, smiling at him. He nodded, though he found it curious how she knew he was referring to someone else and not himself.
"Anyway, stay as long as you want."
"If you have the time, I'm sure the kids would love to talk to the village hero," she said, looking out the window, where a bunch of children's heads were peeking in, watching them talk in the orphanage's kitchen. "I'll have to leave that for another time, so you'll have to forgive me for that," Minato said in the end, scratching his head.
"No problem. In any case, I need to go shopping." "It's good that you stopped by, you should come around more often," she said.
He just nodded and finished his coffee before disappearing. The director merely sighed. "Well, he's gone now, so get back to playing," she said to the children. Minato reappeared once again in the area of the village's main clans, heading towards the Senju clan once more to meet the girls. He wanted to walk a bit more, so he didn't go straight to them, as the streets were bustling with families. As he continued walking through the village, he noticed a group of ninjas moving across the rooftops, which was quite normal. However, one in particular stared at him intensely before changing his path and intercepting his current route.
"Brother!" the person beside him murmured as Minato saw Hayashi Hyuga landing in front of him. "Minato Namikaze," he murmured. Minato nodded to him, approaching more openly than ever before.
After all, he had helped him the other day when the clan guards didn't want to call Hanabi for an outsider.
"Hayashi, can I help you?" Minato asked, a bit curious about the approach. "It's not exactly help that I need. But I wanted to give you a warning about my clan."
"I know how you are with your comrades," he murmured, seeming to recall receiving quite the punch from Minato years ago when they had just graduated from the academy.
Minato said nothing but narrowed his eyes at Hayashi. "Can we talk in private?" he asked in the end. Minato nodded in silence.
"Follow me, then," Hayashi said, jumping back onto the rooftops, while his brother took one last look at Minato and followed. Minato went right after them as they advanced out of the clan area and the village, heading toward an isolated training ground. He said nothing the entire way, while Hayashi sighed upon their arrival, now alone. He looked directly at Minato.
"Answer me something," he asked bluntly.
"If the clan punishes Hanabi, do you intend to attack us?" he asked. Hayashi had no idea what had happened to the Uchiha clan that very day. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been asking such a question. Obviously, Minato responded calmly, but with a serious look. It would be a fight against two extremely powerful clans in Konoha, but at the same time, Minato knew he would do worse things than that, as there were situations where he had to act against the Leaf Village itself. Hayashi's brother seemed a little surprised, but Hayashi himself just nodded.
He didn't seem surprised by the answer.
I figured as much, he said in the end before turning serious again.
We had a meeting yesterday.
Since I'm the heir and future patriarch, I'm attending them, and the elders intend to punish Hanabi for her archery style. The Hyuga clan doesn't want one of its members using that kind of weapon, which goes against tradition. We are a clan specializing in taijutsu along with our close combat abilities, he said. Minato narrowed his eyes, knowing he was not happy with this at all, especially being aware of how cruel they could be.
Why are you telling me this?
To prepare me for an attack?
Because you can say whatever you want, but I won't stand still, even if you warn me about it.
Hanabi is my teammate, and I intend to take her out of the Hyuga clan, Minato said firmly.
I know you do.
That's why I want to propose something, he said in the end. Minato began listening to his proposal, raising an eyebrow more and more as he heard it, as it was indeed somewhat surprising.
Why are you helping me so much?
In the end, Minato couldn't help but ask, as Hayashi had not answered that directly. Let's say I'm doing this for the good, for the future, Hayashi replied.
You talk as if I were going to destroy the Hyuga clan. That's not exactly true.
After all, I might kill an elder or two, but I would never destroy the entire clan, Minato said.
I know that.
But still, I'm doing this for the future, and I have my reasons.
Perhaps we started off on the wrong foot, Minato Namikaze. Back then, I was immature.
Now, perhaps we can act differently, he said in the end.
Minato, although still a bit surprised, nodded. All right.
I accept your words, Minato said. Here, Hayashi said, as he took out a storage tool and handed it to the blonde.
Minato looked at it, surprised. Having such a thing in his hands would greatly help his work in freeing Hanabi.
Thank you, he said in the end, while Hayashi nodded, turning around and looking at his brother.
Let's go back, said Hayashi, and Hizashi nodded.
And so, they vanished in front of Minato, heading out of the camp as they passed through the trees until they left the area, jumping over the rooftops of the houses once they arrived there. Minato stayed there for a moment, looking at the scroll in front of him, before disappearing with a teleportation.
Are you sure about this, brother?
On the way back, Hayashi's younger brother murmured.
Yes, brother. This is the best way to act, even if we are going against the clan elders, Hayashi said in the end.
At the Senju clan, Kushina jumped when Minato reappeared beside her while she was serving the last pieces of cake.
Minato, she exclaimed.
Sorry about that, he laughed at her and sat down with the others.
Where have you been? Suna murmured, with a suspicious look.
Sorting out a few things around, he replied, after having spoken to 3 different people.
Does it have to do with my clan? Makoto asked, with some concern. Minato shook his head. No, it's not that.
But it's good that we're here because there's something I want to show you, he said, taking out the scroll he had received from Hayashi and opening it in front of the table.
That is? Suna murmured.
The Hyuga clan's cursed seal of the caged bird. I received it from someone unexpected, he said, pointing to the drawing on the scroll. This was one of the Hyuga clan's greatest secrets. What Hayashi had given him would make Minato's work easier, as he would no longer need to decipher the seal directly from Hanabi's forehead. Now, he could see its structure clearly before starting to develop a seal-breaking technique. I want you and Kushina to try working on this seal, he requested, looking at the blonde and the redhead. Even though their abilities were at a similar level, Minato knew they were already masters in Fuinjutsu. The 2 of them together would do a better job than he could alone.
This. Suna thought for a moment. Of course we can. Give us some time. We need to help our friend, Databane. Kushina said, leaning closer to the seal and beginning to study it. Suna ended up laughing at Kushina's burst of support and nodded. I think you're right. We'll take care of this, yes, she said in the end. We'll look into it together later. For now, I'd like to talk to the Uzumaki clan members who are here. If you'll excuse me, Minato said, and the 3 of them nodded in agreement. Minato then left the kitchen. "Hey, brat."
As soon as he stepped out the door, he found Tsunade looking at him with narrowed eyes.
"Where did you go with my brother?" "Where is he?" she asked immediately, looking a bit nervous and worried. She might seem like a drunkard on the outside, but she was clearly a very attentive woman. She could sense chakra energies around her, and her brother was undoubtedly something she worried about a lot. She had likely felt Minato approaching Nawaki before they disappeared, and he returned alone. "He's at Might Dewey's house. I took him there to learn taijutsu together. If that's not a problem, the boy might change his fighting style, it could help him with his treatment," he said, while she raised an eyebrow and finally nodded. "I also wanted to talk about the possibility of giving him a new arm," Minato said. "What do you mean?" Suna became serious and looked at him intensely. "We can talk later, in private. There are a few things we need to sort out, and I'm sure you'll be interested, but I'd like you to be sober," he said. Tisk, Tsunade just clicked her tongue. "Can you tell me where the Uzumaki are?"
In the end, he simply asked, changing the subject. "The house in front," she replied. Not that Minato couldn't have figured that out himself, but it seemed more polite, and she was already starting to enter the house. Minato stepped away as she closed the door, but before shutting it completely, she looked at him one last time. "Thank you," she murmured. Minato looked back, surprised, as she closed the door without saying anything else. He simply proceeded to the house in front, where he would have a conversation with the Uzumaki clan members. After all, there were some rather concerning matters that needed to be discussed with them. Chapter 217: The future of the Uzumaki clan may be in danger. Third-person POV. Konoha, year 41. "What can I do for you?" asked the Uzumaki elder. Minato had been brought to the elder by his companions, who claimed that the boy wanted to say something, and the man had accepted his visit with curiosity. "Thank you for receiving me. I wanted to talk about my concern regarding Uzugakure," Minato said. "Yes, what is it about?" the elder asked, raising an eyebrow. "About the security of your country," he said. "What do you mean by that?" the elder insisted, narrowing his eyes now. "I believe that the Uzumaki clan will suffer an attack to be destroyed in the future," Minato said with a serious tone. "Where is this coming from?" The elder's voice was harsh as his red hair seemed to darken along with his face upon hearing those words, and a certain anger was directed at Minato. It was strange to see a boy speak so directly about a threat to the Uzumaki clan. To the elder, it seemed at the very least disrespectful. After all, everything was fine. The war had been won, and a non-aggression pact was being established. Soon, the war would officially end. I won't give you many details, but my theory is that the four great nations, except for Konoha, might unite in a coalition to attack you together and destroy you, Minato said, without beating around the bush. That's absurd. Konoha would never let that happen. We have the leaf on our side. As we saw in the last war, we emerged victorious, fighting against all the great villages, the elder stated in a neutral tone, though clearly dissatisfied with Minato's words. Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm wrong. But there's still that possibility. Minato remained neutral. I know what I'm saying is harsh, and perhaps you want to curse me for it. But I'm not here to accuse anyone. I'm here to talk about possibilities, Minato concluded, with a firm and serious tone. The elder, who seemed ready to rebuke him, fell silent. Minato's words surprised him and made him reflect. Then, he continued. This path could also be taken by Konoha, even though you are allies. He spoke calmly, but at the same time seriously, without being intimidated by the man's gaze. I'm just trying to look toward the future of the ninja world, and I believe this is possible. After all, the war had a ceasefire, and now the leaders of the 5 great nations will be negotiating the peace terms and the end of the war. Minato spoke again, pausing. And if I'm right, this pressure could lead to a reduction in Konoha's power. Currently, Konoha is very powerful, capable of even facing all 5 great nations at the same time. Surely, the other villages feel threatened and will continue the war unless there is a reduction in this power, he continued. The elder listened in silence as Minato laid out his vision. Whether by destroying our own forces, like handing over a war hero such as myself, Tsukumo, or the Hokage's students, or by weakening our allies. Like a force directly targeting Uzugakure, which, not being part of the Land of Fire, is seen as an easy target. Destroying you would be the perfect excuse to weaken a great ally of the Leaf, and thus balance the power among the nations. You would be a target, and Konoha would not be able to do anything to help you under the condition of maintaining peace with the other nations after that. Minato explained, knowing that it would not take long for a third war to break out. Minato had always thought that this philosophy of balance among the villages was foolish if not carefully considered. After all, this idea dated back to the first Hokage when he distributed the tailed beasts to all the villages. At the time, he thought he was right, but it was that very action that would cause even greater wars in the future. Far beyond the destruction caused by the Warring States period, the villages continued with their individual plans and were never truly united, and thinking he had achieved that was an illusion, one that Madara Uchiha himself had concluded, while Hashirama deluded himself with the idea of peace. Minato then looked directly at the elder. That is why the possibility of Uzugakure being destroyed is still very high. He now had the chance to talk about it for the first time. And why are you telling me all this? Are you trying to make me doubt Konoha? The Uzumaki elder asked, with a serious and suspicious tone. Several Uzumaki ninjas died in this war. We fought side by side, and we have had the village as our ally since the beginning. After all, our relationship dates back to the first Hokage, who founded the village. And you, who are engaged to the girl who was the vessel of the Kyuubi and an Uzumaki, like the first Hokage. That is a little strange, don't you think? He continued, staring intently at Minato. You're right. But I am not here because I am your enemy or because I want to destroy your relationship with the village. In the end, I don't know what can truly happen. No one can predict the future. I just want you to be prepared, Minato said as he took something from his pouch and placed a kunai on the table. If this happens, I want you to infuse chakra into this kunai. I will be able to use it to teleport to your village. If I have enough chakra, I can move to the other side of the country and still be fine. Now, if you need Konoha's help and they refuse, I want you to place chakra in it anyway. Even if Konoha refuses to send reinforcements and all the ninjas are unable to help you, I will be here to assist you, he stated. The elder was surprised. He looked at the kunai for a moment before facing the boy again. Let's say Konoha actually does that, and we are in danger. Do you intend to help us even if that brands you as a traitor? A ninja cannot disobey his superiors. He must place his mission above all else. You are an influential figure. If you appear to help us in this supposed war in Uzugakure, surely all eyes will fall on Konoha, and you might drag the entire village into a war. They will not hesitate to label you a traitor who acted alone to protect us and caused another war, he questioned, now more skeptical of the boy's determination after everything he had said. Yes. I said that. Even if I become a traitor. Even if I am hunted by my own village and by my own comrades. I still intend to help you, Minato affirmed, with determination. He knew that this could be the greatest challenge he had ever faced in his life. But he also knew that he would not cower if the critical moment arrived. He would act before the destruction of the Uzumaki clan, if necessary. Why? Why would you simply abandon your life in the village when you are a hero to everyone here? The elder asked, intrigued. Because letting more people die and weakening powerful ninjas in this era is a mistake, Minato said firmly. You speak as if we are about to face a giant catastrophe, the elder commented, now with a tone of interest, replacing his initial anger. There is something acting from the shadows in this world. And I saw some of them during this war, Minato said, revealing something for the first time to someone. What do you mean? The elder narrowed his eyes, attentive. I can't talk about it now. But someone who should have been dead a long time ago is still alive. He is acting from the shadows. I don't know if he is behind this possible attack, but I know that he is eliminating the strongest people and the most powerful clans in this world. That way, it will be easier to dominate the ninja world in the future, Minato revealed, with seriousness.
He took a deep breath before concluding. I would like you not to tell anyone. Yet, Minato requested. The elder nodded his head, certainly surprised by everything he had heard.
In the end, Minato left the house where the Uzumaki were staying to return to his companions. Is something wrong, Musama? A young Uzumaki asked the elder, Mu Uzumaki, who had come along with them to the village as one of the diplomats there to receive commendations for their actions in the war. The elder, head of the diplomatic mission, was thoughtful in his room after Minato had left him.
Nothing you need to worry about, Burton.
I am just thinking, he said as he continued looking at the kunai on the table, trying to decipher Minato's words.
Minato and the girls ended up staying until nightfall at the Senju clan. There, they met Nawaki, who had arrived completely worn out after his intense training on the first day alongside Due.
He had asked to start the exercises, but Nawaki was not at all used to that kind of training and had struggled quite a bit. I see you're taking this seriously, Uncle Nawaki, Minato commented, laughing as he watched Nawaki groaning in pain from the impacts of Minato's playful slaps on his back.
I'm not okay. Nawaki grumbled, feeling the pain in his back, while Minato kept laughing and hitting him continuously.
Stop that, he pleaded, but Minato was getting back at him for their younger days. Nawaki used to act like that when Minato was with Tsuna, constantly teasing them during their time at the academy.
After that, Minato returned with Makoto to his apartment. The next day, Minato heard a knock on his door.
An Anbu messenger handed him a scroll, which stated that he would have another week off. After that, he would need to present his decision on how he intended to proceed with his ninja career from that point onward. Soon after, Kushina and Tsunade arrived together at his house, bringing a dinner they had prepared earlier that morning. While they were eating, there was another knock at the door.
Minato already sensed who it was before even opening it.
When he did, he saw Hanabi, who appeared a bit embarrassed to see all the other girls there, as she had distanced herself from them in recent days.
Come on, join us, Minato said.
Hanabi was easily welcomed by everyone, who teased her a little but held no grudge for her having drifted away.
So, what are we doing today? Tsuna asked, excited. They didn't really have any plans.
Minato seemed thoughtful, looking outside, between the trees, and even through the walls, paying attention to the Anbu who remained nearby for the exclusive protection of Kushina Uzumaki.
Maybe we can start researching that, Minato said.
Everyone nodded, except for Hanabi, who looked confused. His gaze fell upon Kushina.
Did you bring what I asked for? He asked.
Of course I did, Databane, the redhead replied, confident.
Great.
I know this could cause some problems if we decide to put it into practice here, but
we can't let the Anbu see our research.
That's why I intend to go somewhere isolated, Minato explained.
You mean the south of the country again? Tsunade asked. Minato nodded.
Yes, I think that would be the ideal place, he confirmed. Everyone agreed with the plan. After they finished breakfast, Minato asked everyone to gather and touch him. Then, he teleported with the 4 girls. The scenery changed, and they were on the beach where Minato often went.
How much time do we have? Makoto asked immediately.
After all, Minato had said they would have some time before the village noticed they were gone.
I'd say until noon. The ninjas guarding Kushina will start looking for her, and if we don't show up in a few hours, they will surely alert the Hokage. When they realize her chakra is no longer in the village, they will move quickly, Minato replied, while everyone nodded. Now, I want us to start researching. We have 3 Fuinjutsu masters here.
I'm sure we can figure something out with some effort, even if it's a seal that's been used for centuries and is considered unbreakable, he said firmly.
Kushina and Tsunade nodded. Kushina took out the scroll Minato had asked her to bring, while Minato placed another scroll in front of them.
Hanabi was still confused by everything, but her eyes widened in shock when Minato opened the scroll, revealing a seal identical to the one on her forehead.
But how?
This? She stammered, incredulous.
You saw it right. We're going to try to break your seal. So, just relax and enjoy the day.
We'll help you, he said, with a slight smile.
Minato, Tsunade, and Kushina began working together.
He knew he would leave most of this work to them later, but he wanted to help at the start. Hanabi remained there, stunned, wondering how Minato had obtained that scroll and what exactly he intended to do.
It was, undoubtedly, madness. The Hyuga clan would see him as their worst enemy in all of history if they found out. But Minato didn't care. Chapter 218, Defying the Forehead Seal. Third-person POV. Konoha, Year 41.
Minato stayed with Hanabi, Kushina, Suna, and Makoto at the beach until the time limit, just before the village's ninjas alerted the Hokage about the disappearance of the Ninetales Jinchuriki.
Meanwhile, they continued studying the Hyuga symbol.
A week had passed since that event, and Minato kept training with his companions, maintaining Makoto and Hanabi as his team members while Kushina and Suna continued learning more about the Hyuga secret. On this day, Minato went to the Hokage's office to give his response to the proposal the village leader had made to him. "So, have you decided?" the Hokage asked, looking at Minato, who stood before him with Makoto and Hanabi on either side, both wearing headbands and jonin uniforms.
"Yes, we will join the Umbu squad." Minato gave his answer, deciding to enter Konoha's special forces. Great! The Hokage was certainly pleased with this.
After all, having Minato closer would allow him to better understand the village's prodigy.
"It will be great to have you as capable ninjas in the Special Forces squads. You can start tomorrow. Here are some instructions on what you'll need, along with the meeting location where you'll report to the ninja responsible for you."
The Hokage paused as he handed over 3 scrolls before continuing.
"Anyway, welcome to the Umbu squads.
Some of your companions, with whom Minato has already worked, will be in your team as well, allowing you to adapt easily to the new mission dynamics, something you already did with the team you served with during the war." He spoke, and Minato nodded, knowing that, without a doubt, they would be the members of the Phantom Squad. He just wasn't sure exactly who would be there, since all of them had worked in Umbu squads and survived the war. Some had even been members before that team was formed. With that, Minato and the others were about to leave when the Hokage stopped him. "Minato, if you can stay a little longer, I'd like to speak with you alone, just for a few seconds," the Hokage requested as the 2 girls exited.
Minato simply nodded at them to wait outside.
The Hokage remained silent for a moment before speaking again, watching Minato closely. "You certainly are quite enigmatic," he commented.
Minato wasn't sure what exactly he meant, but the Hokage continued. "You are an influential ninja in the village and very powerful. Everyone acknowledges your strength.
But I must say, what surprises me the most is how you managed to take an Uchiha away from her clan."
He made it clear that he knew about Minato and Makoto.
"It wasn't a choice the clan accepted easily, but in the end, it seems they won't be bothered by it," Minato commented.
"I saw that you went to the Uchiha clan a week ago.
So, I assume you resolved that matter," the Hokage noted.
"Yes."
Minato responded, his tone not particularly friendly, already understanding where the Hokage was heading with this. "I also received a request from the Hyuga clan to remove Hanabi from your team. She is a leaf ninja, but she is also a member of the branch family, and the clan has a certain level of influence in coordinating its own ninjas, even their movements." The Hokage paused. "But you didn't accept," Minato stated, looking directly at the Hokage. "After all, if that were the case, Hanabi wouldn't even be here." "No, I didn't accept," he admitted and continued. "I told them I would think about it, but I must say, I was surprised in the end seeing the girl here, with you, presenting herself to join the Umbu." The Hokage observed Minato with a suspicious look. He realized that the Hokage was noticing his growing influence in the village, even more so because he was connected to women from powerful clans. Minato wasn't too surprised by the Hokage's reaction, but he also knew that the man wasn't pleased with it. After all, he could see Minato forming a unique network of allies, something like a Senju Uchiha Uzumaki Hyuga connection, and that was certainly giving the elders a headache. "Hanabi is my comrade. I hope to continue working with her, even if her clan is dissatisfied with it," Minato finally said, as the Hokage nodded in silence.
Alright, I'll do what I can to help you with that. After all, it's not every generation that we have a ninja like her.
She strays a bit from the clan's norms, especially by becoming so strong at such a young age. The Hokage paused before continuing. Her long-range jutsus are certainly very advantageous when combined with her eyes.
Unfortunately, the clan doesn't seem to see that. But, in any case, I'll try to help you. In the end, Minato simply nodded without any further reaction.
Then, he left the Hokage's building and met up with his 3 companions before heading back to his apartment. They talked about what they needed to join the Anbu, and Makoto realized she had nothing since she had left her clan. She needed to buy some extra supplies and took advantage of a discount at the Senju stores, something exclusive to Minato, a privilege he had received since Mito's time. Once they had finished taking care of everything, they agreed to meet the next day at the designated location, where they would receive their Anbu uniforms, be introduced to their squad, and be assigned their codenames.
Hanabi returned home, where her grandfather watched as she entered. She greeted him. "Hello, Grandpa."
However, her expression quickly hardened when she saw the dark look in his eyes.
"Hanabi, what have you done?"
he murmured, unable to believe that his granddaughter had truly taken this path. He knew the dangers this would bring her. The clan elders would not be pleased with this decision at all. In fact, they had already come to see him, informing him that Hanabi had enlisted to join the Anbu squad. This would undoubtedly bring trouble for her. But this time, Hanabi stood firm. "This is my path, Grandpa. I've decided that I will continue being a ninja of Team 7, she declared with conviction. "Hanabi, you don't know what you're saying," he tried to insist. She shook her head. "It doesn't matter anymore, Grandpa. I am now an Anbu of the Leaf Village. Even if the clan disagrees, I have already made my decision." She spoke without hesitation. Before, he had always seen her hesitant, uncertain, or even terrified under the pressure of the clan's main family. But this past week, she had changed, spending every day with her friends. Now, there was confidence in her voice. Suna and Kushina were trying to destroy the seal on her forehead, and that gave her a certain hope. Maybe, one day, she could truly leave the clan and live as she wanted, just as Minato had said she would. He had promised to protect her, even to appear when she needed him. Her grandfather was left speechless as she simply shrugged and walked to her room. Meanwhile, the Hyuga clan elders were discussing this very decision at that moment. After receiving the list of ninjas assigned to the Anbu squads, they had gathered. It was standard procedure for the Hokage to send information about all members to the clan leaders, and the presence of Hanabi's name on that list had caused a major uproar. "This is outrageous. She actually joined the Anbu squad after everything," one of the elders murmured, his eyes immediately standing out among the bulging veins that appeared due to his fury. "That old man." Another one grumbled, referring to Hanabi's grandfather. He said his granddaughter would obey and would not violate the clan's rules. The will of the elders must be sovereign. Since when has a branch family member had such audacity? Other council members murmured in agreement while one of the elders slammed his fist against the floor, outraged. "We cannot let this happen. The rest of the clan knows that Hanabi, that girl, is violating all of our conduct norms. We cannot allow the branch family to see someone disobeying our rules," a third elder spoke with indignation. Hayashi was in the meeting, listening in silence as the elders argued. Though he was being trained to become the next head of the clan, he did not voice any opinion on the matter. "Enough of this. We will summon her immediately and punish her," the patriarch decreed. Everyone agreed, and a messenger was sent to the branch family's house. He found Hanabi's grandfather at the gate. The old man frowned, already knowing what this meant. Deep down, he had been expecting this moment. "Please, don't do this to her," he pleaded. "Clan orders, old man. Now step aside." "I will summon Hanabi immediately to speak with the elders," the messenger responded harshly. Hanabi's grandfather could do nothing. He simply lowered his head, letting a tear fall. He was already fearing the worst for his granddaughter, and being unable to protect her was torture.
Hanabi stepped out as soon as she heard the summons.
She walked calmly toward the messenger, who watched her with disdain.
How dare this girl defy the main family of the clan?
She made her way to the main area, where a large hall awaited her arrival.
Several elders were seated, their severe gazes fixed on her. Hanabi remained silent as she reached the center of the hall.
In front of her stood the clan patriarch, a middle-aged man who observed her with a stern expression.
"So, you are Hanabi Hyuga?" he asked.
It was the first time he had ever seen her. After all, he had never been interested in the branch family members.
Hanabi simply nodded, saying nothing. "You know we spoke with your grandfather, don't you? We requested that he instruct you to leave your current team. And yet, you joined the Umbu squad on your own accord."
He continued, his dark gaze piercing through the young girl.
"You do realize we will not accept this, correct?"
"I know you won't," Hanabi replied, lifting her chin, trying to appear strong, though she was slightly nervous.
"And yet, you still insist on defying us," one of the elders murmured, bewildered.
"She is already challenging us," another growled in irritation.
Hanabi kept her gaze fixed on the patriarch, not looking away.
"So, you truly dare to challenge the clan?" he asked, his voice heavy with authority.
"I will forge my own destiny from now on."
"I will not let the clan manipulate who I will become," she declared firmly. For the first time in her life. At that moment, the hall fell into complete silence. All the elders were stunned by her boldness.
"So be it, then," the patriarch spoke.
The next moment, he formed a hand seal.
Hanabi suddenly felt dizzy.
The seal on her forehead began to burn intensely. A searing pain took over her head, making her instinctively reach for her forehead. She almost fell to her knees but forced herself to remain standing. Even with the excruciating pain, she looked directly at the patriarch, refusing to avert her gaze.
"I will not let you manipulate my destiny.
I will own myself, and I will not allow the main family to control me."
Hanabi growled, her voice filled with fury.
All the elders were initially shocked by her resistance. They had not expected the girl to be so defiant as to ignore the pain of the seal.
But that was only the first stage of activation.
After all, there were far worse tortures reserved for those who rebelled. Without hesitation, the patriarch clasped his hands together and swiftly launched the second activation of the seal.
Hanabi screamed at that moment as the pain surged through her.
Her head tilted back, her eyes wide in shock from the unbearable agony. But then, time seemed to stop. She remained paralyzed, screaming in agony, while all the elders watched with satisfaction in their motionless states. Then something unexpected happened. Suddenly, a figure appeared in the room. Using Hanabi's own seal as a teleportation point, someone materialized at an absurd speed, advancing at the speed of light. Before the patriarch could even react, before he could even see it coming, a precise kick struck his face with brutal force. The impact sent him flying backward violently, crashing onto the floor, completely disoriented. The same person who had delivered the blow disappeared in the blink of an eye. He had only appeared long enough to stomp on the patriarch with a speed and precision that no one else could even perceive. The patriarch had no time to recover from the first attack.
Everyone present was stunned.
The elders, who had been watching the punishment of the rebellious young girl with pleasure, were now in shock. Time seemed to slow down as the patriarch fell backward, his face contorted and crushed.
Then, in the next instant, time accelerated with force.
The next moment, the patriarch was hurled against the wall with devastating power. The impact triggered a series of explosions, collapsing part of the surrounding structure. The Hyuga who were in the area were left speechless. The walls cracked, and at least 5 houses nearby were destroyed by the sheer force of the impact. When the dust settled, everyone could see the patriarch lying among the rubble. His face was covered in blood, his nose broken, his eyes half open, unconscious.
Silence took over the room.
The elders froze, unable to comprehend what had just happened. Hanabi collapsed to her knees, breathing heavily, still feeling the effects of the seal's activation.
But she didn't understand. What was that? Since when does this girl have such an ability?
One of the elders exclaimed, bewildered, thinking Hanabi had done something.
She must have done something.
Quickly, punish her, another one bellowed furiously. He brought his hands together to activate the cursed seal once more. But the moment he started executing the technique, another foot appeared out of nowhere and struck him brutally. The impact was so powerful that the elder's face was deformed instantly from the kick. Without even having a chance to react, he was sent flying with a devastating force. His body crashed through 5 more houses before landing, completely unconscious. Horror took over the faces of the elders. The authoritative presence they had intended to maintain while punishing Hanabi was now replaced by pure terror. 2 important members were on the ground, gravely injured, after attempting to use the cursed seal against the girl. The Hyuga who were watching the scene furrowed their brows, confused, trying to make sense of what was happening. Hanabi was still there, struggling to recover from the brutal activation the patriarch had forced upon her. But, surprisingly, the pain lasted only a second before vanishing, allowing her to finally breathe again.
Chapter 219 Umbu Team. Third-person POV. Konoha, Year 41.
The gazes of those present shifted back and forth, confused. None of them, except for those who had tried something, had been struck, yet they saw the bodies of the elders and the patriarch lying on the ground in various places, not understanding exactly what had happened. However, one thing was clear, it all started the moment they activated the seal on Hanabi's forehead. The girl had finally recovered, but she still had a weary look, unaware of the horrified eyes of the other elders upon her. She's doing something, one of them concluded. She changed something in her seal, others thought, since no one could see exactly what was happening. They only saw the elders being struck down one by one. Hayashi had been there the entire time, just as surprised as the others. He had handed the scroll to Minato a week ago, and Hanabi had met with him the entire week. He thought that perhaps Minato had done something, but he didn't know how. Suddenly, several Hyuga clan ninjas began to enter the hall, many of them from the main family.
What is happening here?
They immediately sought answers as they found several fallen elders and the patriarch himself.
That girl?
Somehow, she altered her seal to attack anyone who activates it, one of the elders responded, still panting. Since the seal on her forehead no longer works properly, I want her captured immediately. He had reached this conclusion. The clan's ninjas, following the order without hesitation, quickly advanced toward Hanabi. She, in turn, only watched in surprise. However, before they could even touch her, they were all brutally repelled without warning. The ninjas' bodies were thrown far away, breaking through the hall's walls. The sound of debris and groans echoed through the place as more houses collapsed around them.
Once again, silence settled among the elders.
Even without activating the seal, the elders murmured. Hanabi looked around, surprised at what had happened. She hadn't moved, nor had she done anything to attack. Like the others, she also didn't understand what was happening.
No one can touch her?
That was the conclusion the elders ultimately reached, looking at the young girl with a mixture of fear and caution. As the wounded were treated, the entire clan was already gathering around the hall, both members of the main family and the branch family. Everyone wanted to understand what was happening.
Hanabi. At that moment, Hanabi's grandfather entered the hall.
His gaze swept over the fallen bodies on the ground before settling on his granddaughter. He approached her, concerned. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice filled with apprehension.
Hanabi only nodded.
Even so, she noticed that everyone around her continued to observe her cautiously, not daring to come too close.
"Tylee, tell me. What did your granddaughter do?" One of the elders asked, his voice overflowing with anger as he glared at Hanabi's grandfather. "I don't know what you're talking about, Beiki-sama," he responded cautiously. "Don't give me that."
"Your granddaughter is doing something," the elder retorted furiously. Before he could say anything else, he quickly brought his hands together and activated the caged bird seal on the old man's forehead.
Instantly, Hanabi's grandfather screamed in pain, collapsing to his knees on the floor. "Grandfather!" Hanabi shouted, running toward him.
But before her grandfather could continue suffering, it happened again.
No one saw the person approaching.
They appeared out of nowhere and, with a single kick, struck the elder who had activated the seal. The brutal impact instantly shattered his nose, jaw, and teeth before he was sent flying, destroying another part of the hall. Just like before, the attacker disappeared before anyone could even see them.
The remaining elders were paralyzed. They didn't know what to do.
Half of those who decided the clan's future were now fallen, injured in a terrifying manner.
"Grandfather, are you okay?"
Hanabi ignored the commotion around her and focused only on her grandfather, who was breathing heavily.
She knew he was no longer at a good age.
Suffering an attack like that could be fatal for him. Even though he had asked her to stay away from her friends, he was the only relative she had left. Besides, Hanabi knew that, deep down, he had always wanted the best for her. Even if reality was harsh. "You too." Hanabi looked at the person who had caught her attention.
"Go home. There's nothing here for you anymore."
The one who spoke was Hayashi, his expression serious. Hanabi felt her grandfather leaning on her shoulder and began to leave, while the elders and other ninjas watched cautiously, giving space without anyone doing anything to stop her. "You let her leave just like that, after everything?" one of the elders asked, incredulous.
"What were we supposed to do?"
"Something is happening here, and it has to do with Hanabi."
"Do you want to see more people from our clan being thrown away?"
Hayashi retorted. The elder who had questioned him simply nodded, agreeing with his reasoning. In the end, Hanabi took her grandfather home, and no one else bothered them. However, she didn't sleep that night, expecting an attack from the clan at any moment. But, surprisingly, no one approached, although a few Byakugan eyes had kept watch on her. After what had happened, everyone was focused on treating the wounded. At Konoha's hospital, the doctors were shocked when they started receiving several members of the Hyuga clan with severely bruised faces and some broken bones.
Nothing like this had ever happened before in the clan's history.
In the end, the elders had no choice but to give up on their actions, at least for now.
Some clan members looked at the commotion surrounding Hanabi with admiration and even surprise.
Others, however, glared at her with anger. Even though she was from the branch family, she had somehow insulted the elders by disobeying their orders, something unthinkable for them. The next day, Hanabi felt afraid to leave her grandfather alone in the clan after everything that had happened.
"Go." Hanabi looked at the old man, who stared at her with a calm expression.
"I don't know what happened yesterday, but you made your choice. Somehow, you managed to protect yourself from the elders.
So don't worry about an old man like me. Go and follow your heart."
In the end, he smiled slightly, trying to reassure her. Hanabi was still a bit unsettled at the thought of leaving him alone, but she nodded. She swore to herself that if anything happened to her grandfather while she was away, she would make those responsible pay. Leaving the clan, she quickly headed to the meeting place, where she found Makoto and Minato waiting for her.
Makoto had a sharp gaze, while Minato looked satisfied to see her.
"How are you?" he asked. "I'm fine," she replied, trying to avoid talking about what had happened in the clan, though she didn't know that the two of them already had an idea. "That's good. Now we just have to wait for our contact, if he's willing to come out of hiding," Minato said.
They didn't have to wait long.
Just 20 seconds later, someone landed in front of them. "Always alert, Minato," said the large Umbu ninja, large because he was fat, removing his mask and looking at Minato with a smile.
"You think you can fool me, Echo?" Minato replied, giving a sharp look to Furia Kimichi, whose codename was Echo. "Of course not. But I've learned a few things since you left our squad in the war."
"I wanted to test you, but I can see it's still hard to deceive you," the ninja replied with a satisfied smile.
"Anyway, let's get going. We need to find the others.
I'm sure they'll be pleased to see you. After all, at this rate, the Umbu squad is practically made up of almost all of us from the war team." He paused before continuing. "Of course, except for those who died.
They will always be in our memories."
Minato nodded, feeling a dark weight settle over him as he remembered his fallen comrades. He took a deep breath in the end, trying to shake off the feeling.
Let's go, Echo urged, moving forward. Hanabi and Makoto quickly followed him. Shortly after, they arrived at a small house in the middle of the forest, in a more restricted area, different from the conventional training fields. There was a man standing in front of the house. Minato recognized him immediately. It was the leader of the Umbu squad during the war, Alpha. You finally arrived, he said. Now, come in. He gestured for them to follow him.
Minato, Makoto, and Hanabi stepped inside the house, where they found a group of ninjas already gathered, all standing.
The place had only a few furnishings, seemingly used solely for meetings. Everyone was wearing uniforms and masks.
So, these are our new comrades, a woman whom Minato didn't recognize asked, observing them closely.
Well, looks like we have someone interesting here, another ninja commented with a smile.
The hero of the Leaf Village.
We meet again,
Brat, said a member of the former Phantom Squad, Blade, crossing her arms.
Looks like we got our big guy back, Mirage commented with a grin, patting Minato on the back. Now they won't be able to call him our mascot anymore.
Soon enough, he'll be a full-grown adult.
Cut it out.
You have no idea how much you're annoying him, Echo said, disapproving of Mirage's actions.
I'm just greeting him, you fat ass.
The kid adores me, the woman joked, but it was clear that Minato did not appreciate it. Makoto, on the other hand, was glaring at the woman, almost activating her Sharingan, annoyed by her lack of awareness. Minato moved past Mirage and also recognized Zelda, Blade, and Falcon, while the others had either already greeted him or were dead.
Vortex, another surviving member, was not present. He was a Hyuga, and Minato didn't know why he wasn't in the squad. Hello, everyone.
To those I know and those I have yet to meet, Minato greeted, looking at all of them.
Sensei.
Minato gave a special greeting to Falcon, his academy teacher.
It's good to have you here, kid.
I see that even those children I taught for just a year in the academy have grown strong.
Welcome, he said at last. All right, enough chatting.
Let's go over the rules, Alpha interrupted, drawing everyone's attention.
This will be a bit different from how we operated in the war. After all, we were a tactical force and infiltration team. Working in the Umbu is different.
He looked at the group and continued. We will be a special force for both the security of the village and the Hokage, as well as for assault missions.
When the village is in danger, we will be the arms that protect it.
That's why I want everyone to pay attention to their roles in our missions. The group assembled, joining the rest as Alpha began explaining more about the Special Forces structure. They were no longer the Phantom Squad, but they still had to follow Umbu protocols. With that, Alpha assigned codenames to the new members.
Minato would keep his codename, Lumen. Hanabi received the codename Wind. Makoto received the codename Valkyrie.
Alright, let's take our positions within the village, Alpha ordered. Minato and the others had already put on their uniforms, cloaks, and masks, just like the rest of the squad.
Everyone was ready to move out.
Thus, the group of 24 Umbu ninjas advanced toward the village. Most of them were people Minato had never met before. They left, ready to begin their duties. On the way, the newcomers received more instructions about the squad and the missions they would soon undertake, while Alpha took charge of explaining the remaining details to Lumen, Wind, and Valkyrie.
Raccoon here.
Finally, it was time for a time skip of a few months.
Chapter 226 months later. Third-person POV. Konoha, year 42.
You are already here. The feminine voice came from behind as Minato gave a small smile. He saw Kushina approaching him as she stopped by his side with a bouquet of flowers. Both of them stood still, looking at the grave in front of them, which belonged to none other than Mito Senju. Today marked the anniversary of Mito's death, which had occurred a few years ago.
I wanted to see her a little more. Minato turned his attention back to the grave.
It wasn't in a public area but within the Senju property, like all the deceased members of the clan. Despite being a private area, Minato was free to enter.
She is missed, isn't she? Kushina murmured as she approached the grave, starting to place fresh flowers while removing the old ones.
She had been maintaining the graves frequently, something she had gotten used to over the years, especially when she was alone during the war.
Of course, Minato replied.
Mito had been part of his childhood in the village. Even though he had focused solely on training during his early years, she had certainly helped him ever since he first met her when Suna invited him over for dinner with her family. She had a unique sense of humor and enjoyed teasing everyone. Minato had never openly shown it, but he loved her like the grandmother he never had. Someone he had hoped to see again after the war, waiting for him and the others. But that wasn't possible, as she had passed away during the war. Only the Senju clan had been able to spend her final days with her. She always talked about you in her last months. Kushina noticed Minato's quick words, something that happened when he was deep in thought, making him look at her in surprise. She always asked for the village to be taken care of, for everyone to be protected, and
Kushina seemed too embarrassed at the last part to continue. Minato smiled.
She had always seen him as the future of the village, someone who would one day take the place her husband once occupied when he founded it. She had imagined him wearing the Hokage's hat. Minato, from the moment he first met her, had the impression that she saw him as Hokage. It was strange, but he simply missed her. He was sure she would have dismantled Hanabi's seal completely within a few months. It's a shame she's not here, but she's certainly in a better place. Minato commented at the end, while beside her grave was that of the first Hokage. They were probably together again in death.
Yes.
Kushina moved closer to him and stood by his side for a while, just contemplating the grave in silence as she leaned her shoulder against him. They remained like that for a moment until Minato sighed.
I should go now.
He spoke. After all, he had his shift as the Hokage's bodyguard.
All right, just make sure to show up for dinner.
I'll prepare something for you,
Kushina said as Minato nodded.
Yes, I'll come here tonight,
he said as Kushina approached and gave him a kiss. Minato put on his mask and disappeared after that.
6 months had passed since the Hyuga clan's turmoil and his companions' entry into an Anbu squad. Several things had happened during this time. The Hyuga clan had even tried to do something to Hanabi again, but once more, a group of elders ended up back in the hospital, making them fear the girl without knowing exactly what had happened. After all, with the ability to activate the seal on her forehead at close range, they were always met with a counterattack. Minato had altered something in the seal with his knowledge. He couldn't destroy it yet, as neither he, Kushina, nor Tsuna had found the key to it. However, he had linked the seal with his Raijin. When someone tried to activate it to harm Hanabi, he would immediately know and teleport to her, acting before anyone could react. After all, he used his lightspeed abilities to kick and punch anyone who attempted anything. He was truly fast, so much so that many reported seeing a flash of light when it happened. But in reality, no one there could actually see the speed of light. Even those who tried to examine the seal on her forehead couldn't, as Minato didn't allow it. Not even Hanabi knew exactly how it worked. He simply beat up anyone who tried. After that, Hanabi was no longer bothered. As for Makoto, no one else from the Uchiha clan bothered them. Although they looked at Minato and Makoto with cold eyes, no one dared to say anything to either of them. The Uchiha clan was now focused on training its new heir. Fugaku was undergoing intense training, according to what the village was saying, but as long as they didn't interfere in Minato's life or his fiancée's, he didn't care. Besides Minato, Hanabi, and Makoto being in the Anbu squad, Tsuna was working at the village hospital, putting into practice everything she had learned from the war and from her mother. After all, Tsunade was off duty, spending her time drinking and even gambling. But unlike her older sister, Nawaki seemed much better than he had 6 months ago. After undergoing intense training with Might Do Wei, he had even started wearing a green outfit for training, developing his taijutsu more than ever, surprising Might Do Wei with his senju genetics. Kushina was further specializing in Fuin Jutsu and, with Minato's encouragement, developing her adamantine chains even more. The seal on her stomach was still very powerful since it had only been created a few years ago, but Minato felt that it was beginning to weaken.
Kurama, who was not yet a problem for Kushina, could become one at any moment.
That's why he wanted her to be strong enough to handle the tailed beast by herself.
Minato hoped to have an honest conversation with Kurama without actually having to fight.
After all, he recognized that, thanks to Madara and, in a way, Hashirama, her freedom had been stolen. Minato understood that any creature would feel immense hatred in such a situation. Jiraiya-sensei still hadn't returned to the village, even after almost 3 years.
Soon, that time would be complete. Minato knew he would be back soon. All of Minato's other acquaintances were living their usual lives without much change.
But the 16-year-old blonde always visited them, maintaining a steady routine whenever he wasn't on Anbu duty. Working in Anbu was truly a different type of mission compared to the traditional ones.
Not that Minato could talk much about it, he had only ever done a single S-rank mission in the normal ranking system.
Of course, this didn't count war missions, since he had remained in the village, though that mission was still connected to the war. Compared to the missions that Konoha's regular teams usually did, Anbu had one singular purpose: protecting the village. Whether by dealing with traitors, selecting targets with potential threats, protecting the Hokage, or investigating treason and suspected rogue ninjas within the village, their objectives were clear. He and his companions had completed more than 30 different missions in these 6 months. Most of them ended up being B rank, with many A rank ones, but no S rank missions, as there had been no major threats. C rank or lower missions weren't something Anbu handled, so there were none of those for them. This post-war period was calm, so the missions weren't difficult. However, the war had not officially ended yet. The meeting between the Kages and the feudal lords of the countries had not taken place, but it was scheduled for next week, where the leaders would finally define the terms of the war's conclusion. In short, life was peaceful, and the Anbu salary was very good as well, not that Minato needed the money. Besides, he had received a shop from the Senju clan in the past few months. Tsunade had realized that there were too many properties for the clan to manage alongside Nawaki, and they initially thought of selling some. But in the end, they offered it to Minato as something like a wedding gift and a way for him to ensure a prosperous future for Tsuna, Kushina, and their descendants.
Minato couldn't have asked for more, especially since the shops were located in the best area of the village. He produced a lot of things, and Kushina helped him with that, but they also bought items from third parties. Minato was never a great businessman, despite knowing how to make money easily, but he was taking good care of the properties, earning even more money for the construction of his personal estate in a corner of the village. His house had already begun construction. While the workers were building the large area and the surrounding wall, he felt excited about how things were progressing. Soon, he would have a place to live with his future family. He had shocked many people as rumors spread about him having multiple fiancées. Only Hanabi was not included in this, although there were rumors about her too, since she was always with him and the other girls. However, nothing was official, mainly to avoid further problems with the Hyuga clan, at least until he could remove her seal. Returning to the present, Minato appeared in front of the Hokage's building before finally advancing to his shift. He greeted all the hidden Anbu members and took his position in the Hokage's office, concealed on the ceiling, invisible to everyone who entered. There were at least 12 Anbu ninjas with Minato, and none of them spoke. They simply waited for the Hokage's orders or prepared to act at any sign of danger to his life. In the end, they stayed there for hours while the Hokage spent most of his time reading and signing documents, smoking his pipe, while many people came to speak with him. Minato and his comrades listened to various conversations on a wide range of topics. He had to admit he was often surprised by what he heard in recent months, especially by the demands that some ninjas made of the Hokage. At one point, even a Chunin came in, demanding an S-rank jutsu as a reward for his contribution to a war mission which wasn't even that important. His justification was that learning an S-rank technique would make him stronger and allow him to help the village more. But judging by the amount of chakra in his body, Minato doubted he could even perform an S-rank jutsu. Today, everything seemed ordinary, nothing too exaggerated. The only notable complaint came from a merchant arguing about the village taxes. At one moment, the Hokage paused and decided to summon a specific Anbu member. Lu Mum.
Minato immediately disappeared and reappeared in front of the Hokage, kneeling on the ground, not as a sign of reverence, but simply because that was the Anbu norm.
You're dismissed. There is a special mission I've assigned to your team. Your leader should be calling a meeting soon with everyone, so you may go. Minato nodded behind his mask. Understood. With that, Minato vanished, advancing through the village toward the team's secret location before using the Raijin technique to instantly teleport there. Author's note, just a summary of events and a bit of Minato's work as Anbu. I wanted to highlight this role a little since I aim to explore Naruto's world in different ways and take advantage of its depth. That wraps up this part of What If Transmigrated as Minato Namikaze. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.